It was supposed to be an ordinary walk home from the farmer's market, the kind where leaves crunched under tiny boots and the smell of kettle corn still lingered in the air. 5-year-old Emma skipped beside her grandfather, dragging a too large scarf across the sidewalk, humming something that wasn't quite a song. Then she stopped. 3 houses before theirs, just past the crooked mailbox and the hedge shaped like a squirrel, Emma saw something that didn't move right. It wasn't the shape that caught her first. It was the sound. A faint, irregular scraping, like something too heavy being pulled where it didn't belong. There, between the curb and the gutter, lay a German shepherd. His body was low to the ground, as if gravity pressed him harder than the earth itself. One of his hind legs was twisted beneath him, raw skin where fur used to be. His chest heaved shallowly. Mud clung to his flank like dried cement. But it was his eyes, dark amber, cloudy around the edges, that reached into her ribs and pulled something loose. He looked at her, not at her scarf, not at her grandpa, not at the world around, just her. And something in that gaze asked, not for help, not for food. It asked to matter. Grandpa didn't see him. He had already stepped ahead, muttering about soup and the cold coming too early this year. Emma stood still. Her scarf pooled like fallen wool at her feet. The shepherd blinked once, slow, deliberate. His body trembled as he tried to drag himself forward, but only managed inches before collapsing again, chin resting in the gutter water. She didn't speak. Her throat wouldn't let her, but her feet moved. One step toward him. The moment felt like a crack in time. Silent, golden, terrifying. A child, a broken dog, a bond no one could explain. And what she did next left everyone in tears. Emma lived in a single-story house with chipped blue shutters and a mailbox shaped like a barn. The house sat at the edge of Larchwood Lane, where every yard had pumpkins in early October, and wind chimes played soft metal songs when the wind remembered its way home. Inside, the house always smelled faintly of lemon floor cleaner and something baking, but rarely finished. Her mom, a night shift nurse with shadows beneath her eyes, often left scribbled notes instead of breakfast. Things like, "Eat your yogurt, Emmy," or "Don't forget your red boots today." Forecast says puddles. Her grandpa Robert used to be a forest ranger before arthritis stiffened his legs and slowed his voice. He now spent most days in a wooden chair near the window, half listening to the local radio and half telling stories that blended fact and forest. "Trees don't forget who hugged them," he'd whisper, eyes half closed. Emma never corrected him. She liked believing trees remembered things. At 5, Emma didn't talk much, but people remembered her. Something about the way she watched things, not people, not conversations, but the spaces in between. She noticed when the neighbor's cat didn't come home for 3 days. She noticed when the lady at the post office wore her crying lipstick. And she noticed that some silences didn't feel empty. She didn't have siblings, though her mom once promised maybe someday. School was fine. The crayons always smelled new, but the kids didn't get her. When other children played tag, Emma watched ants rebuild crushed hills in the cracks of the sidewalk. But she wasn't sad. She just felt more than she could explain. Her pediatrician once called it sensitive. Her grandpa called it a gift. Emma didn't call it anything. It was simply the way her skin tingled when something nearby hurt, even if no one else could hear it. The day she saw the German shepherd, the wind was lighter than usual, the kind of wind that carried voices 2 blocks down and rattled aluminum cans in forgotten alleys. The sun filtered through oak leaves like golden lace, and the world smelled of dry grass and apple cider. No one else noticed. Not the mailman with headphones. Not the boys skateboarding down the corner hill. Not even Grandpa, who once claimed he could hear trees complaining about droughts. But Emma noticed. She always did. And the ache she carried home from the sidewalk wasn't in her feet or her chest. It was somewhere deeper, somewhere that hummed when the world turned just slightly wrong. That night, Emma dreamed of scraping, not a loud, crashing sound, but something smaller, a dragging, like someone pulling a heavy sack across a stone floor, again and again, in rhythm with her heartbeat. She woke just past 3, the kind of hour when everything in the world feels like it's holding its breath. Outside, the street lamp flickered in cycles. Inside, the house creaked the way old houses do, like it remembered things and wasn't quite ready to forget. Emma sat up in bed, listening. Nothing. But the silence was wrong. She pressed her ear to the window pane, still smudged with her fingerprints from the morning. And then she heard it again, not with her ears this time, but somewhere behind her ribs. That sound, the slow drag of something that didn't belong in this world of nightlights and warm pajamas. The next morning, the world was bright and normal. Birds made loops in the sky. Grandpa muttered about the heating bill. Her mother microwaved instant oatmeal and kissed the top of Emma's head without looking. But Emma couldn't eat. That sound had followed her into the daylight. It buzzed beneath her skin. By mid-afternoon, she found herself wandering toward the baseball field, following a path she didn't remember choosing. Her feet led, not her mind. Behind the field, where the fence sagged and blackberry vines tangled like bad dreams, she saw movement. At first, it looked like wind in the leaves. Then she realized it wasn't leaves. It was fur, matted and dull, barely moving with breath. A shape pressed flat into the earth, half covered by fallen branches and soaked ground. It was him, the German shepherd. Closer now, she could see everything. The raw, furless patches along his side, the crusted wound along his back hip, the way his right front leg curled unnaturally, refusing to hold weight, and his eyes. Not just tired, resigned. But when Emma stepped past the rusted chain-link fence, he didn't run. He didn't bark or growl. He blinked once. Then, slowly, he lowered his head onto the cold mud. Not hiding, not afraid, waiting. She crouched down a few feet away, knees in wet leaves, heart thudding against her throat. For a long time, neither moved. Then Emma did the only thing her body would allow. She pulled the last granola bar from her jacket pocket, unwrapped it, and rolled it across the space between them. The shepherd didn't even sniff it. He just looked at her and blinked again. She whispered, "I found you," though she didn't know what it meant, and maybe she hadn't. Maybe he had found her. At dinner, the soup was too hot, and the table too quiet. Emma sat with her hands folded in her lap, watching steam curl from her spoon. Her mother scrolled on her phone with one hand, occasionally nodding to Grandpa, who was talking about frost coming early this year. Emma cleared her throat. No one looked. She tried again. "I found a dog, behind the baseball field." Grandpa glanced up first. "A dog?" Emma nodded. "A big one. He's hurt. He's hiding in the mud." Her mother didn't look up. "You mean one of the neighborhood strays?" "No," Emma said softly. "He's not a stray." "Was it wearing a collar?" Grandpa asked, reaching for the salt. She shook her head. "Then probably not someone's pet. Might be sick," he muttered. "Or wild." Emma pushed her bowl away. "He can't walk right. He's dragging himself. And his eyes..." Her mom finally looked at her, phone still in hand. "Emma, Sweetheart, sometimes animals are better off left alone. They know how to survive. Emma's hands curled around her knees under the table. He's not surviving. There was a long pause. Then her mom sighed and went back to scrolling. I'm sure he'll find his way. Or someone will call animal control. Emma wanted to scream, but instead she stared at the wood grain in the table until it looked like rivers. That night, she drew him. On lined paper, using the dark crayon she always saved for tree bark. She drew his legs bent wrong, his tail flat. His eyes, those were the hardest. She pressed the crayon so hard it broke. In the morning, she put the drawing in her backpack. At school, she showed it to Ms. Terry during art time. He's the dog I found. Ms. Terry smiled kindly. That's very expressive, Emma. Did you dream about him? Emma's voice came out smaller than she expected. No, he's real. Ms. Terry nodded the way adults do when they don't believe, but don't want to hurt your feelings. Maybe you could write a story about him. Emma folded the picture back up. Maybe. She didn't cry. Instead, she spent lunch staring at the woods beyond the playground, wondering if Brave, yes, she had named him now, silently, was still there. Waiting, still in the cold, still not surviving. When the bell rang and the other kids ran for swings, Emma stayed seated, the drawing pressed against her chest. That evening, Grandpa dozed in his chair by the window. Her mom was working late. Emma packed a sandwich, 2 napkins, and a flashlight. She opened the front door slowly, careful not to make the hinges groan. The sidewalk was empty. The air held the smell of dry leaves and chimney smoke. She whispered, I'm coming. And she stepped into the dusk alone. The gate behind the baseball field hadn't changed. Still leaning sideways, still tangled in vines like it was trying to hide something. The same crooked sign that once read no trespassing now just said no pass. Emma ducked under the lowest rung, her knees brushing thorns. Her flashlight trembled in her small hand, its yellow beam slicing through darkness like a question. She whispered every step, not to herself, to him. I'm back. The ground was wetter tonight, the mud softer. Leaves clung to her boots. The wind had quieted, like it didn't want to interrupt. Somewhere far off, a train wailed, a long, aching note. She found him where she left him. Brave. He hadn't moved much. His body had shifted slightly, like he'd tried to turn and gave up. One eye blinked slowly at the light, but he didn't raise his head. Emma dropped to her knees beside him. I brought food. She unwrapped the sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, crusts still on. Brave didn't sniff. He didn't lick. He just lay there, ribs rising and falling in shallow rhythm. She set the sandwich down, unsure what else to do. Her hand hovered over his back, but she didn't touch him, not yet. Instead, she pulled the flashlight closer, scanning his legs. The back ones looked stiff, too still. The front paw was swollen. She didn't know what was broken or how to fix it. All she knew was he wasn't safe out here. Do you want to come home? She asked. He blinked once. It felt like yes. Emma reached into her backpack again and pulled out the softest thing she had. The old fleece scarf her mother had knitted but never finished. It was barely a scarf, more like a long patch of warmth. She folded it into a square and slipped it under his head. His eyes fluttered. His breath slowed. Then, with all the strength her small frame could manage, she tried to slide her arms under him. He whined. Not loud, just a shiver of sound, like an apology. His weight was too much. He tensed, not in fear, but pain. She sat back. I can't carry you. Silence. Then she looked around. The wheelbarrow, 2 houses down, beside the garden that smelled like wet basil, the Johnsons had left a wheelbarrow tipped in the grass. Emma had seen it every day. Rusted green, but solid. She stood, wiped her palms on her jacket, and whispered, "Wait here, Brave. Please." He didn't move. He just watched her go. 20 minutes later, after dragging metal through 2 blocks of sidewalk and holding her breath through every creak and clank, Emma returned. Breathless, muddy, shaking. She lined the inside with her jacket, scooted the wheelbarrow beside him, crawled into the dirt to nudge his body in. It took everything she had, but somehow she did it. Brave curled up just enough. His tail brushed her arm. She looked him in the eye. "Let's go home." And then, one small girl, one broken dog, and one stolen wheelbarrow rolled slowly through the sleeping town. Unnoticed, unheard, unforgettable. The wheelbarrow rattled with every crack in the pavement. Emma leaned into the handles, her boots slipping on the dew-slicked sidewalk. Twice she had to stop to catch her breath. Once, she had to steer around a trash bin, nearly tipping the whole thing. But Brave didn't move. Not once. He lay curled in the rusted tub, pressed against the warmth of her coat, eyes half closed. Not asleep, watching, not relaxed. Waiting, but not afraid. By the time they reached her backyard, the sky had turned the color of steel wool. Early light pressed through the clouds, hesitant and gray. The shed at the edge of the garden was barely taller than Emma. It smelled of potting soil and motor oil. A broken rake leaned against the door, and somewhere inside, spiders owned the corners. She nudged it open. The hinges groaned, but not loud enough to wake the house. Inside, she laid an old picnic blanket over the floor, found a clean plastic bowl, filled it with hose water that tasted of metal and morning. Then she looked back at Brave. "I'll help you in," she whispered, more a question than a promise. She reached under his chest, the way she had before. He winced, one sharp flinch, but didn't snap, didn't growl. She cradled his weight as best she could, sliding his front half onto the blanket. He did the rest. With one slow heave, one breath that sounded like gravel and storm, Brave pulled his injured legs in after him and collapsed into the dark. Emma dropped beside him, mud streaked on her sleeves, hair stuck to her forehead. She didn't speak. He didn't either. But his tail moved. Just once. The faintest brush of fur against her ankle. And that was everything. Later that morning, after pretending to have slept through the night, she asked Grandpa about old dog food. "In the shed?" he asked, eyeing her over his coffee. "No," she said quickly. "Just wondered." He didn't push. That afternoon, she slipped a can of tuna and a spoonful of rice into the bowl. Brave lapped slowly, deliberately, as if each bite cost him something, but he kept going. That night, she crept back out again. The shed was warm from the day's sun. Brave lifted his head as she entered. This time, he scooted an inch toward her. She sat beside him, crossed-legged, sketchbook on her knees. She drew his ears first, big and alert, even in exhaustion. Then his eyes, softer now, less clouded by pain. Then she paused. He nudged the pencil from her hand with his nose. She laughed, not loud, a breath that skipped out before she could catch it. "You're brave," she said. His tail flicked again. And in that quiet, cramped little shed, Emma didn't feel strange, or too much, or made up. She felt understood. And Brave? He was no longer hiding. He was staying. For 3 days, Emma kept the secret like it was breath in her lungs. Quiet, constant, essential. Each morning before school, While the world still held onto mist and the grass whispered in the breeze, she snuck to the shed. Brave would already be awake, watching the door, ears tilted forward. He no longer flinched when she reached out. Sometimes he even leaned into her hand, gently, like memory returning. She brought him rice, bits of chicken from last night's dinner, a slice of apple once. He didn't eat fast. He ate like trust, slow, unsure, but growing. At school, while other kids traced letters or told jokes about squirrels, Emma thought about the way Brave's eyes followed her, about how his breath steadied when she sang, softly, off-key, barely audible, about how the shed didn't feel like a shed anymore. It felt like a pause in the world. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the maple trees, she'd bring her sketchbook. She never showed him the drawings, but he'd watch her hands move. One time she drew his paw beside hers. Same shape, same weight, just different fur. She started talking to him more. Not big, fancy thoughts. Just the kinds of things no one at school cared to hear. Mrs. Calloway smells like pickles. I hate math when the numbers get mean. I think my mom forgets that I'm little. Brave listened, eyes open, head tilted. And when she cried, quietly, silently, the way kids do when they're afraid they'll be overheard, he nudged her knee. Every time. One night, she crept into the shed, wearing her dad's old hoodie, dragging her pillow under one arm. Brave had been trembling from the cold. She curled beside him, pulling the blanket half over herself and half over him. His body radiated warmth. His heartbeat was slow, like the ocean lapping against sand. She slept better than she had in weeks, but secrets don't stay quiet forever. Grandpa noticed the missing food first. "You been feeding raccoons, Emmy?" he asked one morning, holding up a half-empty peanut butter jar. She shrugged. "Maybe." He squinted. "You wouldn't lie to me, would you?" "No," she said, and it wasn't a lie. Not really. Not if Brave was more than an animal. Later that day, while Emma was at school, Grandpa walked into the shed to find his toolbox. Brave didn't bark. He didn't lunge. He just lifted his head and stared at the old man with eyes that had seen too much. And Grandpa paused. A long, motionless pause, like something ancient in him stirred. He closed the door gently, said nothing when Emma came home. That night, she found a note on the shed floor. "If you're going to hide him, at least give him a name." She smiled, folded the note twice, then looked at Brave, who wagged his tail once, slow and certain. "You already had one," she whispered. "Now it's just official." The first real rain of November came heavy and without warning. Emma watched from the classroom window as water slapped against the asphalt and turned the kickball field into a shallow lake. Thunder cracked somewhere behind the trees. Most of the kids cheered. She didn't. She thought of the shed, of Brave, and how scared he might be alone in the storm. When she got home, soaked through her sleeves and shivering, she found Grandpa already waiting at the back door, boots on, flashlight in hand. "You're late," he said. "Let's go check on your friend." She blinked. "You mean?" He didn't answer. Just opened the umbrella. Inside the shed, Brave was curled tightly, ears pressed flat. The thunder didn't shake him, but Emma noticed the way his breathing quickened when the wind howled. Grandpa crouched slowly. He set down a tin bowl of broth. Thought this might help more than peanut butter. Brave sniffed, then drank. "Good boy," Grandpa murmured. He reached out, slow, careful. His hand brushed Brave's neck, and stopped. His fingers caught on something buried beneath fur and scar. "There's a chip," he said quietly. under the skin, near the shoulder. Emma stared. Like a microchip? Grandpa nodded. Used in working dogs, military, search and rescue, maybe even police. Brave lifted his head, watching them both. That night, while Emma drew the outline of a badge next to Brave's paw in her sketchbook, Grandpa made calls. He didn't say much, but she heard phrases through the wall. Match's old service report. Discharged 2 years ago. Never adopted. Considered unfit after injury. No one followed up. Just disappeared. The next morning, a woman from the county shelter came by. Thin, tall, raincoat zipped to her chin. Just asking questions, she said. We had a ping from a chip, that's all. Emma stood behind Grandpa on the porch, hands curled into fists. The woman glanced at her. Did the dog ever show aggression? No, Emma said before Grandpa could speak. He saved me. The woman raised an eyebrow. From what? Emma hesitated, then answered. From being alone. Grandpa cleared his throat. We're not looking to give him up, if that's what you're asking. The woman gave a practiced smile. That's not up to us. Depends if he's listed as county property or government discard. When she left, Emma turned to her grandfather. You're not going to let them take him, are you? Grandpa looked out toward the trees. The sky was trying to clear, but failing. They left him behind once. You think they'll come back for his heart now? That night, Emma curled up beside Brave again. She whispered, You were someone before, huh? Saved people. Wore a vest. Had a handler. Brave nudged her elbow. She smiled. But you still picked me. His tail tapped once against the floor. Then again. 2 steady beats in a world that kept forgetting how to count what matters. It started with a black SUV, unmarked, quiet. The kind that didn't belong on a street where kids rode scooters and neighbors traded soup recipes over fences. Emma spotted it from her bedroom window one Thursday afternoon. Parked 2 houses down, engine off, windows tinted, it didn't leave. Not for an hour. Not after dark. The next day, the knock came. Not at the front door, at the shed. Brave didn't bark. Emma opened the door to find a tall man in uniform slouched against the frame. His hair was cut short. His jacket had a patch she didn't recognize. His boots were too clean for real work. He looked at Brave, then knelt slowly. Rex, he whispered. Brave didn't move. The man tried again. Sergeant? No reaction, just stillness. Emma stood between them, arms wide. He's not Rex anymore. The man looked up. He served with me, saved 4 lives in a mudslide, took shrapnel for a boy in Kandahar. They said he wouldn't recover. He paused. I didn't know they dumped him. You left him, Emma said. The man blinked. I was deployed again. When I came back, he was gone from the list. Grandpa stepped forward. Why now? We got a chip alert. My unit tracks discarded K9s. I came because I needed to see. Brave lifted his head. Not a growl, just presence. Emma didn't move. He's not going with you. The man's voice softened. I'm not here to take him. I just want to know he's okay. They stood there, 3 figures in the narrow doorway of a wooden shed, rain softening the dirt, wind pulling leaves into spirals. Then Brave stood, shakily. He limped to Emma's side, leaned his weight into her leg, and stared the man in the eyes. No recognition, just decision. Emma reached down, resting her fingers behind his ear. The man gave a nod, not to Brave, but to her. You saved him. She didn't answer. You gave him something I didn't. She didn't need to. The man pulled something from his coat, a small leather collar. Worn, stamped with faded letters. "Sergeant, Search and Rescue, Unit 71. He handed it to her. "Keep it. He earned it." Then he turned, stepped back into the SUV, and was gone before the next breath. That night, Emma held the collar in one hand and Brave's paw in the other. Her mother, standing in the doorway, finally asked, "You really love him, don't you?" Emma looked up. "He's mine." And for once, her mom didn't argue. Instead, she whispered, "Then let's make it official." 2 weeks later, a woman from the Animal Services office returned, this time with a clipboard, a warm scarf, and a very different tone. She sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea from one of Grandpa's chipped mugs, while Brave dozed in the hallway, his tail brushing against the floor in slow contentment. "No one filed a claim," she said. "Technically, he's still government property, but I spoke with my supervisor." Emma leaned forward in her chair. The woman smiled. "They signed him over. He's yours now." Emma didn't cheer. She didn't jump or dance or squeal. She just looked at Brave, who opened one eye and blinked, as if he'd known all along. That afternoon, they went to the park for the first time. Brave couldn't run, not yet, maybe never. But he walked, slowly, proudly. Every step sure, every muscle remembering how to belong to the world. Children pointed. "Is he a police dog? Was he in the army?" Emma shook her head. "No," she said. "He's just mine." Brave sat beside her on the bench, ears forward, head high. Autumn leaves floated around them, like something letting go. She traced the curve of his scar with her thumb, then looked at the name stitched into his new collar. Brave Harris Loved. Found. Home. Some nights, the nightmares still came. Loud, sudden, impossible to hold back. She'd wake in the dark, heart hammering, lungs unsure, and Brave would already be there. One paw on her blanket, one warm breath on her arm. No bark, no growl, just presence. Like he knew the way fear moved, like he could track it, smell it, press it back with silence. She never had to ask. He never had to answer. They simply understood. Sometimes kids at school still called her strange, still said she drew too much, talked too little. But one day, during show and tell, she brought Brave. He stood beside her, legs stiff but proud, and she said just 6 words. "He found me before I found him." Silence followed. Then one hand clapped, then another. That night, her drawing of him went up on the fridge. Beside it, her mother taped a note. Sometimes the loudest rescues happen in silence. If this story stirred something in your heart, leave a paw print in the comments below. And if you've ever been saved by someone who couldn't speak, maybe today's the day to tell their story. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories like Brave's, because sometimes the ones the world forgets are the ones who never forget us.